Going to be making some vegetable soup. One of the learning objectives that I want you to appreciate for today is about measuring spoons, measuring jugs, and using the hob safely to boil and simmer. Just laid out a selection of spoons on the board here for you to see, and you can see that they're all really quite different sizes. So we've got a tablespoon here in the middle. I'd say that's probably a bit smaller than the average tablespoon. That's more of a dessert spoon. And then I've got 3 teaspoons. You can see they're all really different sizes. The moral of the story really is that we can't rely on any of those to weigh and measure accurately with. What we would really want to use is some measuring spoons. And I've got some measuring spoons here. This one is 15 millilitres, which is 1 tablespoon. And this one is 1 teaspoon, 5 millilitres. So I'm going to be measuring out 15 mils of oil. So I'm going to keep that one out. I don't need the teaspoon. And I'm going to put my other spoons away because I'm not going to need those. I've also got a wooden spoon out. So the reason I'm going to leave this one out is because I'm going to use that to stir my soup. Wood doesn't conduct heat up the handle, so it's a really good choice when you're cooking because the handle doesn't get hot and burn you. Okay, so I'll put that over there. Right, first thing I'm going to do then is to prepare the vegetables on my chopping board. I've got 3 vegetables. I've got an onion, a potato and a carrot. Soups are excellent. You can make whatever flavoured soups you like using all sorts of different types of vegetables. If you've got any vegetables that are starting to go off in the fridge, then just have a look on BBC Good Food, type in the name of the vegetable and write the word soup next to it and search and see if you can find something a recipe that you can make to use your leftovers. So I'm going to use the vegetable peeler, and holding the carrot one end, we're going to peel away and just turn the carrot around until you've gone all the way round. Once you've done that, turn it round and do the same on the other end. Again, we're going to carefully cut each of the ends of the carrot off. And I might just take a little bit more off that end, okay? Making sure you keep your fingers well away. Now we want to cut this up. I'm going to blend my soup smooth. If I was going to keep my soup chunky, then I'd be more interested in making sure that all of the pieces were beautifully cut. But I'm not going to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a bridge hold just to cut my carrot in half. And then I'm going to use a bridge hold to cut it in half again. You'll notice because it was quite a big carrot, I've done it in 2 halves. I always put the flat side down on the board so it doesn't wobble around. And then we can get a couple of pieces at a time. We're going to change over to a claw and just dice it up so it's in about 1 centimetre pieces. These are diced up. They're roughly the same size. It's really important that they're roughly the same size so they cook at the same speed. Next thing we're going to work on, it doesn't matter what order you do. I'm going to leave the onion till last because some people find it makes their eyes sting. But equally, if you do leave the potato last, because you get a bit of enzymic browning on a potato, if you leave it on the board too long, it will start to brown. So we're going to remove the skin. It's not as easy as with the carrot. It's quite tricky to peel around on a curve. My peeler's a little bit blunt, so peeling away from me is a bit of a challenge. So I'm going to carefully, without letting the blade come into contact with my skin, I'm going to peel around the curve there of the potato, and I'm starting to discover my potato is a bit bruised, which is fine. It's natural, it's grown in the ground. We don't know what it's going to look like till we've peeled it. But what we can do is then to just cut the bruised bits out. They'll look black or brown in there, and we just cut them away until they're all gone. We don't want the bruised bits in there. That's still enough. The potato's really in there to help thicken the soup. Without any potato in there, the soup can be a little bit on the thin side, but that's okay. So now I'm just going to dice it and slice it. So I've just cut it in half, and then I'm cutting it into slices, and then I can cut the slices into 1 centimetre dice, similar to the cake. Notice I'm keeping my vegetables separate on the board. That'll become apparent in a minute. We need to keep the onions separate to the others in particular. Some people like to just have a bowl handy on the side to keep their waste in. It's not a bad idea. Right, next we're going to prepare the onion. It grows this way up in the ground. These are the roots on the bottom. This bit grows up. We're going to cut the top of the onion off. And I can feel that onion is a little bit off, so I'm going to get another one out of the fridge. That one's a bit better. Let's try again. Right, this one doesn't look very promising either, but we'll have a look and see what it's like on the inside. Looks a bit better on the inside. So cut the top off. Place the flat side down on the board. Cut it in half through the middle of the root. And then you're going to peel the skin off. There we go, that's fine underneath. Looks a bit grotty on the outside, but on the inside it's okay. So peel the skin off both sides. We're going to work with one side at a time to dice it up. If I was doing a fine dice on my onion, I'd be really particular about leaving the root on there. But because we're just chopping it roughly for the soup and I'm going to blend it, I'm actually going to just cut the top off now. With a bridge hold, I'm going to slice it into about 4 and then turn it round and then dice it probably about 3 or 4 times that way. And then all the pieces will break up like this. Next thing I'm going to do then is, so you can see that on my board I've got all my vegetables chopped and I've kept them separate, had a bit of a clean up. Now I'm going to start just frying the onion off. When you cook that, it gets quite nice and sweet. So I'm going to take some oil. You can use sunflower oil, vegetable oil. I've got a rapeseed oil, that's my favourite. Olive oil will be fine. We're going to do 1 tablespoon measured into the saucepan. The oil just stops it from sticking in the pan. Then we're going to turn the heat on. So if you're using gas, I've got gas. It's self-lighting in school. I have to press an ignition at home, but when you press the dial in and turn it round, the ignition will go automatically and you'll be able to light it. Now, on the ones in school, it's the same as mine, where you've got a big flame and a small flame. And if it's on the big flame, it's going to be on the highest heat. If you turn it around to the small flame, the heat's going to reduce down to a lower heat. Okay, and you can obviously have it on medium, you can have it on anything in between. And there's usually a few different size rings on the hob. So I've got mine on quite a large ring here, so I'm going to be careful about, I'm not going to put it on full heat, it'd be too much, so I'm going to put it on a medium to low. And I'm just going to give that a few moments to heat up. If you're using an electric hob, you'll usually find that you've got numbers, say from 1 round to 6, with 1 being the lowest heat and 6 being the highest. So I'm going to bring my board over to the pan and I'm going to put my onions into my hot oil. If it starts sizzling and going mad in there, you know the heat is too much and you can just turn it down. But that seems to be okay. I'm going to break the pieces up with my wooden spoon and I'm just going to let that cook until the onions softened. Meanwhile, I'm going to prepare my stock, and to do this I'm going to use a measuring jug, and this jug goes up to 1000 millilitres, which is the same as 1 litre. I'm going to start off with about 300 mils, that's about half a pint. You can always add more, but you can't take away, so I always make quite a small amount and add more if I need it. So I'm going to put my stock cube here. This is just a vegetable stock cube. You can use chicken, beef ones can be a bit odd. So I'm going to place that in and then I'm going to reboil my kettle a moment. And then I'll fill it up to the 300 ml mark. Now, in order to do that accurately, I'm going to be crouching down to the side of the jug, finding the 300 ml mark and then waiting for it to stop wobbling around so I know it's got to the right place. The other way that you can do it, which is if you need accuracy, absolute accuracy with your measuring, you can put the jug onto some digital scales, turn them on, make sure it reads 0 in grams or 0 in mils, and then you get your water and you can pour it in until it gets to 300. Sometimes you have to be absolutely accurate with your weighing and measuring. For this soup, it's not essential. A couple of grams plus or minus isn't going to be a problem. Okay, 300. And then we're going to give it a stir just until the stock cube dissolves. Okay, can you see in there? Once that's dissolved, the stock's stock's ready. Let's go and have a look and see what's going on with our onion now. So we've got some sizzling going on there. Not catching and burning or anything, but I am going to turn it down. Those are going to be starting to go nice and sweet. We'll just give those a couple more minutes before we put the rest of the vegetables in. Okay, so my onions are nice and soft now, so I'm going to add in the rest of my vegetables. I'm just going to carefully put them in. Make sure that the heat in the pan's not too high. When you add the water, it can sizzle quite a lot if it's too hot. What we're looking for then is so the stock's gone in, the potatoes gone in, the carrots have gone in. What we need is for the water to cover the vegetables and then a little bit more. So if you feel that you need to add a little bit more water from the kettle, you can. I'm going to add a little drop. And then we're going to put it on quite a high heat just to bring that back up to the boil. And I'll show you what a boil looks like in a minute. If you've got any fresh herbs or dried herbs that you'd like to add, you can. Or you can add some spices. Coriander can be quite nice, carrot and coriander soup. I'm just going to add a little sprinkle of parsley. Be careful with dried herbs. Some people go in and they start pouring it in. You get far too much in there. We're just going in with a little bit of parsley. You can add whatever herbs you like. And we're just waiting until we get a rapid boil on this before we drop it down to a simmer. So if you can see into the pan, you can start to see that there's some bubbles around the edge moving quite quickly. That will spread to the middle as well in a minute. Once you've got it up to a boil, we're going to reduce the heat down until we've got a really gentle simmering. And on my hob, because it's on quite a big ring, I will need that to be on the lowest heat. And we're going to leave that. We don't want the water completely still. We want a slight bubble, which is what I've got there, nice gentle simmer. And we're going to set a timer for 20 minutes. You can put a lid on. If you put a lid on the pan, it's going to stop any of the water evaporating out of the pan. If you don't put a lid on, you might lose some of the water through evaporation. You might just have to replace it if it dries out too much. But I'll show you how to deal with that later on. So the vegetables have been simmering now for 20 minutes. And I've just turned the heat off because I took the biggest piece of carrot out, put a sharp knife into it, and I felt that it was cooked all the way through. It's very difficult to overcook a soup, so if you aren't sure, I would give it another 5 minutes. And I've lost a little bit of water through evaporation, so I'm going to add a drop of water back in, leave it to cool for a short while before I blend. Okay, so I've added a little bit more water. I've got my stick blender ready. This has got a small blade in the end and you can blend it straight into the pan. Alternatively, you could use a liquidizer, but just make sure the soup's not too hot because it might crack the glass or the plastic. So because this is quite a small quantity, I'm going to tip it up into one side and then go with the stick blender. Let it cool down first in case it sort of flicks at me because it'll be hot. So keep blending until all your vegetables have and then we can have a little taste, check for seasoning. We can have a little stir and make sure that we're happy with the consistency. So if we stir it there, we can see it's quite thick but not too thick. If you want it thinner, you can add a little bit more water. What some people like to do is take a few of the lumps of vegetables out and leave them out whilst they blend it and then add the chunks back in so you've got some lumps in there, it's not completely smooth. And like I said at the start, any vegetables can be used to make a soup and it's super healthy.